Well, nowadays, most of the vulnerabilities are in, what would you call it? A desktop application. So this is things like Word, Acrobat, even Explorer, like Internet Explorer, I'll put IE, or Flash. What those are is they make outgoing connections. That is, they're a client, okay? And so what people do with these, most vulnerabilities now, are they're going to hack your personal computer sitting on your desk, okay? There's very few that are found in a server application. That is to say, they still find them, okay? We just had this one. That was a huge one. That was called OpenSSL. Oops, SSL. Okay. So this is something with an open network port. Okay. So OpenSSL would be a server. Apache is a web server program. So stuff like that. There's like file sharing, indexing. But again, most of the server stuff is pretty buttoned up. Okay. So now it's on the client side. This is fun and terrifying at the same time. So Trojan. Oh. Yeah, we'll talk about that stuff in a minute. It's totally, you can just talk about how to do it. So she was saying that there's YouTube videos on how to hack people. Well, I'll tell you how to hack right now. That's what I'm telling you right now. I don't know, sorry. This is what you do. All right, so let's get a few little terminology stuff out of the way. Email and ask him for help. Hey.
Well, wouldn't the agency go, oh, well, let me go find that person who's doing the bad
Oh,
stuff?
but this stuff is all, I don't know. They would just say, we're just doing it to help. It's educational purposes.
Public service message.
Yeah. Well, there's a password hacking, like cracking tool. Like, so if you get passwords, here's the way you crack them. And they will tell you, this is for server administrators to like test how good people's passwords are. But at the same time, you read through like the frequently asked questions, and it'll say things like, I can't get a hold of the password file. How do I gather these over the network? And then it's, I'm on a switch network. You remember, because normally on a switch network, you only see traffic for you. Like, I'm on a switch network. How do I get people's passwords if I'm on a switch network? And at that point, I'm sorry, that's not a network administrator anymore. You're not helping anybody. All right, let's do a little terminology. So first one, virus. If ever you hear about a virus, this is where an exploit, good grief, exploit circulates when someone, we'll just put touches the bad file or the code, okay? This means that someone had to click on something or run something. That's what we would call a virus, okay? Oops, should I leave that up for a second? So again, a virus here circulates, yeah. So the virus This is the exploit is a virus, and the way the virus makes itself reproduce is it tries to get people to touch this bad code. And so when you get that email that says, here's something new about the missing flight in Malaysia, whatever, click here. They're trying to get you to touch it, right? Once you touch it, you're going to open something, right? You're going to open Word, Acrobat, whatever. It has a vulnerability in it, and now you're infected. So that's the virus idea. Right? These all get nice and complicated. The funny thing is I have this in my notes, and they keep inventing new words, and so I'm going to save for words that aren't even in there anymore. That's all right. Okay, so that's a virus. So antivirus, this is supposed to scan any file or code that you, and I'll put in quotes again, touch, okay? So the whole purpose of your antivirus software is it's supposed to scan when you touch something and see if there's a virus there before it runs. Okay. So it needs to check and see that the stuff you're touching is okay. Now, this worked for a long time. Well, it is. So this is normally going to be like if you plug in your thumb drive into the side of your computer, anything you access on that thumb drive should be scanned. It should also scan email, so any file that comes into your computer over your email, or when you download it. Okay? And the problem is it's not normally web files. You remember I told you about all those connections, right? So each picture on the web, each PDF on the web, each Flash thing on the web, each HTML5 thing on the web, that could have a virus in it. Could have exploit. All right, you all understand this. You are browsing in the Wild West, okay? That's pretty scary. It's a minefield, yeah. We'll note that. It's a minefield. That's a good way to say it. It's not really the Wild West, is it? It's seriously a minefield, okay? And people are always, remember this is a virus, and I want as many people as possible to touch it. And so the bad guys are trying to put these pictures and things on any website they can. And they will actually literally buy advertisements. They'll buy an ad, and in the ad will have an embedded image that has exploit code in it. That is really scary. Well, yeah, it would make it, well, yeah, make it easier for them to get caught. If you're, what would you say? If you're not already using a hacked bank account and whatever else you're doing. So in theory, yeah, you could get caught, but these guys are getting away with a lot. So that's the idea of antivirus. But again, even with antivirus, anything that you're just doing on the regular web where stuff is embedded in the web browser, you've got something to be scared about. All right? So next up, we got a Trojan horse. Usually people just call it a Trojan. This is when the user thinks they're getting something useful, but usually they're also getting something else. So really this is a type of virus, right? So someone has to touch this, they have to run it, and a lot of times this is what you get sort of embedded if you try to download, I don't know, a pirated version of Photoshop. You're not only going to get Photoshop, you're going to get a special bonus also. Some extra free software, yeah. And they do this all the time. Yeah, sometimes they call this, what are they calling this these days? The extra baloney. There's a special word for that, and it just flew out of my mind. Where are we at? Do I have that in here? What? Bloatware. Well, that's the stuff that's pre-installed. General terms, just by the way, this is all of this is,
It's the same thing. You don't want
yeah,
to
they
use
call that,
something
no.
else. I don't know what it's called.
Oh, spyware. Usually that's what you get. That's the extra stuff. So say I download whatever browser search bar, it'll also have this extra stuff. And the extra stuff is just generically called spyware. And it's trying to keep track of you.
That's the bad
It's going to track you, and it might monitor like all the stuff as you type. There's so many millions of words. That's called spyware. That's just stupid.
Oh, adware?
Adware, yeah, that's a good one. You guys all got all this stuff. Adware is something that will show you ads. And if someone can get you to click on an ad, or if they just show you an ad, they get a little bit of money. So there's some adware you get, by the way. So if I download some browser plugin and it's adware, it will put extra ads on every web page I hit. And then whoever gave me the adware gets a little tiny bit of money from Google for having the ads. This is fun. This is a whole big business. All right, where am I at? Oh, so there's another one. This is not a big category, but I want you guys to know the idea of a watering hole attack. So a watering hole attack is when the hacker will target a certain, like a forum. So we'll put here the bad file is placed on a page where the target visits. So they just had this happen where they didn't announce the name of the company, but there was someone trying to hack into an oil company, like a major oil company. I'm assuming actually they're in Houston. And what they did is they hacked the online ordering of the Chinese restaurant that the people at this company were known to use. And so the ordering still worked and everything, but they got these bad, these bad files, like we're talking about up here, put on this other website. And so as these people visited this site, they were attacked, but then they knew, they had their eye on certain people. So that's a fun one. But people do that all the time. There was one a little while back where they put these bad files on an Apple, like iPhone developers website. Somebody got hacked there. And so they put this stuff on there, and they got a whole bunch of people that worked at Apple, and they were very happy. So that's fun. All right. We got Antivirus. All right, next one up is a worm. Luckily, we haven't seen worms in a long time. A worm will spread automatically. Okay? This only works with open ports. Okay? Whenever you have an open port that has a vulnerability, you have the chance to get a worm. But this is actually, potentially really common. Like this little thing here with the heart bleed, where they had this weakness that they found, and it's in a port, right? HTTPS has its own port. And so in theory, if they're getting this memory, in theory they probably could also send a bad attack thing and run some code on your server too. And in that case, if it can automatically run, then they have a worm, right?
Are these known to clone, or anyone who clone themselves?
Yeah, that's basically what we're saying. They're cloning themselves. So once you're infected, should we start using our fancy word? Once owned, PWND. Once you're owned, it will search for new victims. And in this case, the victims, they don't have to click on anything. We just have to find someone with the vulnerability. Okay? So we will scan. And normally the scan just goes on that subnet. So we start by scanning that subnet. Then we scan random subnets. And you're looking for a port number. So a specific port number is open. And then we send the bad data. Or we might see what program is running. Okay, so if we look back here at our Heartbleed, so if what we need to do is see if they're running HTTPS, we're going to scan the whole subnet. So IP address by IP address. We're going to see if they have this port number open on their computer. And once we find out that that's open, then we send them the command we want that shows they're doing bad data. Okay? Now my computer is getting scanned all the time, my web server. So this is really normal. I better say frequently. On mine, it's not constantly. And I got the note up. I check once a week, or I try to check once a week on my computer. And what I'm looking for is has someone been successful with something that they shouldn't. Okay? And so they'll send me, what they're looking for is vulnerabilities. And my computer actually runs PHP. So there's PHP, which is a server scripting language. They're looking for those, mostly those. There are some in the, well, I don't know what some of the other ones, we'll just put etc. Okay? They're looking for vulnerabilities where they can send you some sort of command that would run in PHP. And if you have a vulnerable version of PHP, then they'll take your computer over. That's kind of scary, right? It is scary. So so worms. Right, what are we gonna do? Oh, that's fine. The height of worms, by the way, there was a really big heyday for worms. The peak worm time was really 2001 to 2003. We haven't had a really bad set of worms since then. But what that period did is we switched from, it used to be Microsoft released their patches on Tuesday in a month, and we would test them, and we'd wait, and we'd wait, and we'd wait. But all these worms came out, and they were for things that Microsoft had already fixed. And since this date, now we apply patches immediately. We'll just put quickly. Patches, P-A-T-C-H. And speaking of patches, let's talk about that just a second. Okay. Worms are fun. There was a worm a long, long time ago that a guy had done some code and he wanted to monitor what was going on the internet. This is in the early 90s. And he made the code just, it would scan over and it would go into routers. So his code would, he'd, try to find the router, and then he'd connect to the router and run a little command on it and tell that router to connect to other routers. And what happened is all of the scanning took down the whole internet. Isn't that fun? And really, in 2001 to 2003, we would have worms that would take out people's whole networks. You just couldn't use the network at all. There was so much traffic of scanning that you couldn't do any other stuff.